Welcome to the Cars and Kicks podcast here, folks. I am Eric Valdez. Again, we are without Jacques today. He is here in spirit, but Nick is here with me. We are broadcasting. Are we broadcasting? Or are we podcasting?
Podcasting.
We're podcasting. We're not broadcasting. There's probably like only 4 or 5 people that listen anyway, so that's not very broad. So no, we are coming to you from the Motoring Club in West LA again. Thank you to Michael and the guys at the Motoring Club for letting us use their space today. But we have another special guest for you today. Our homie Armando here, who we met back at the Discount Tire Treadwell experience, right?
We met on a bus.
We met on a bus. You are right. It was early morning.
And the rear differential was, remember how loud
yes,
that was?
whining the entire way. Yeah, and Armando he was kind of chilling, wanted to take it easy. And I don't know why I started talking early in the morning. And at first, I think he was like, oh, dude, I don't have the energy for this. But then we started talking a bit about cars, stuff like that. And then everything that you do business-wise and entrepreneurial-wise and everything. And we just kind of hit it off that weekend. And we've been wanting to have you on for a while now. Now that we're here, we made it happen. So... welcome. I forgot to mention, I did say Nick is here, but I didn't let Nick talk. So Nick, say hi to everybody.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm Nick. I keep these guys on track normally, but I'm just going to let Eric roll with this one.
That's what we're doing. Yeah, but thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
It's, again, obviously show's called Cars and Kicks, and you're here for that reason, like heavy in the kick game, heavy in the car game. Got some really dope cars. Like, I love the fact that, it's eclectic too. Like, There's a lot of people that are like, yeah, I'm a car guy. And we've talked about this before. And they drive dope stuff, but it's all like, it's either supercars or it's muscle cars or it's whatever. But you got a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
and it's
kind of have that, like, I got something for that type collection.
Yeah, it's super dope, man. I guess you grew up here in LA, right?
Yeah, born and raised in LA. Grew up on the east side in Alhambra. I never really left. Went to Loyola High School, which is right around this area on Venice Boulevard. And then I went to Loyola Marymount, which is right by Venice and Marina del Rey. Went to college here, went to high school here, never really left. So I was just born and raised LA kid. But I grew up in Alhambra, which is very close to San Gabriel and very much JDM culture. So growing up, there was a lot of JDM. There was a lot of trucks, but there was a lot of just Hondas and Lexus and the nice cars to me were always the nicer JDMs or the nicer German, like super basic E classes and S classes because they're driven by some old person. So I think I saw my first supercar when I went to the auto show, and that was kind of it, right?
Yeah.
So
I guess that is true. Like I lived out here, again, for those of you that have listened before, I'm in Dallas now, but I lived out here for like 17 years. And we talk about Southern California car culture and how diverse it is, how dope it is, everything like that. But it is, as diverse as it is, it's also very, depending on what part of LA area you're in, it changes. Yeah. And so that's a valid point. Like here, we're West LA, like there's a window right here next to us. And at any given moment, there's going to be a McLaren or a Ferrari or something drive by.
And I feel at any moment you could open your phone and see it. And growing
100%.
up, it's like you only see what you were exposed to. And I was only exposed to all red Mitsubishi Eclipse with the one straight out of Fast and the Furious. Like those types of bodies, big rounded backs and wings and all this stuff. Yeah. And that's what you experienced, you know? So the only time I experienced anything else was when I went to the LA Auto Show or to some random show with my dad. But it wasn't what it is now where you what everything else looks like.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean we're a bit older too, so we
for sure.
So we didn't have the internet wasn't a thing early on. So
definitely.
Yeah, it is, that part of it is cool because it exposes everything to everyone at any given time. That's the beauty of social media, the internet, etc. But there's a charm to kind of growing up in a certain area and just having what's right in front of you. You know, for me, growing up in El Paso, Texas, it was similar to LA in that it was heavy in the JDM world and the lowrider world. I think LA and El Paso are like the mecca of lowrider, everything. Yeah. And so that's what I was exposed to early on. And so for me, I don't know that, like, there was like 1 or 2 guys in El Paso that had a Ferrari. And one of them is because he owned like a bunch of Ford dealerships or something. And as a kid, I was like, wait a minute, but he sells Fords.
Right.
Like, how does he buy? I had no idea how lucrative that business could be.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I moved out here that I really started to kind of see the different, different subcultures and everything. And also we talked about this on a recent pod about how jaded you become at a certain point when you've spent this much time in LA and you've seen or driven or ridden in a little bit of everything.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So with that said, like, since you're exposed to what you saw in Alhambra and then going to the show and seeing your first supercar and then now kind of seeing what all LA has to offer, how did you kind of find your niche and what really spoke to you car wise?
I mean, to me, the most beautiful cars are always lowriders. Like no matter what, to me, a lowrider is such a perfect design because, and I say that a lowrider as a general term because there's so many, and I can't tell you an Impala is better than this or that. But it's more about that's what catches your eye. It's like the glimmer, right? It's the chrome. And to me, growing up, it was these things that you always saw as something I want, but you didn't know how to get it. You can't just go buy a lowrider at the dealership.
Right.
So to me, it was always this feeling of this imaginative type thing that you want, but you didn't know how to get them. And when you get older and you get in the industry and you learn like you kind of build your own or you buy one from, it's different. So growing up, to me, it wasn't really those. It was a lot of JDM and a lot of German, Mercedes and things like that. But my taste comes from a lot of different influences. Growing up, I would go to Boyle Heights in East LA and you have that like lowrider influence. And then I would go towards home and you pass through San Gabriel and you see all these JDMs. And then, as you get older and you watch more music videos, you start to see these cars and they become something of your imagination, like the purple poster on my wall of the Countach. It was actually a Diablo was purple and the white was the Countach above the bed. But it was also right next to the poster of Allen Iverson and the new i3s that had just come out. I was very influenced by my music that I listened to and the people that I was surrounded by. And I kind of feel like growing up in that time, you're kind of a chameleon, right? You're really balancing off the people that you meet. So, I unfortunately knew like a lot of like cholos, kids like causing trouble, but I also knew some really smart kids. And I also knew this one kid, Jacob, in my class that can draw any car. And so it's like, there was all these different influences of like, I want to be able to draw that cool car, but I want to know that cool lowrider, but I also want to be able to understand how an engine can really be pushed and be something like a supercar or something like that. So those influences have kind of influenced the way I think, not to mention I've always been obsessed with design. Both from shoes and cars and posters and whatever. Like design to me is the greatest part of anything created. How does it look and how do people interact with it? How do people consume it? And what are the things that I would do? And so that was the cool part of JDM is because everybody's car is what they would do, right? No JDM car is stock, at least back in the 90s and early 2000s, right? My joke I have with my brother-in-law is like, he's like, if you could really get any JDM, what would it be? I was like, I want a 1998 Mitsubishi Eclipse, red. And he goes, oh, dude, you could find one of those. I was like, that's the problem. You don't find those. And if you do find it, it's got like 200,000 miles on it. And, and it's probably been altered so many times that you have no idea what you're buying. And so it does exist, but it doesn't.
You said something that's interesting, though. It's like, I got a thing for that, right? Like, I love that because for me, like I moved a ton growing up. I went to 13 schools, K through 12. Okay. So like, but I went to the same high school. So imagine how much I moved to get to high school, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
But like, I hung out with all the kids that had lowriders. Like this Bobby Chavez lived down the street from us. His dad built lowriders. He built lowriders. Cool. His sister built a lowrider after I moved away from home. Like that was like the influence. So, but I came from a Honda family. Right. So my first drivable car was an 87 Accord. And of course, at that time, lowrider Euro is just about to come out. And I'm like, the Indian dude down the block had an 87 Accord with crown wires on it, 16 switches, had like this rolled and tucked interior, like, but the same. So like, the 87 Accord, pop-up headlights, gold, like, but had like that,
but the lowrider
burgundy color on the inside, but he just redid it lowrider style, right? Yeah. But like the thing that's really interesting is like we got to look at all these different things. Sure. Like I 100% agree with you. Like the most beautiful car is a lowrider. I don't necessarily think that any other
car is better.
Yeah,
It's
like,
not about being better.
but it's like the amount of love and energy that goes into that car is what inspired so many of me and
The
my friends in the
detail.
JDM side.
Right.
Yes.
And Eric starting out in mini trucks, right? Like
Right.
the level of detail that you find when you look outside of what you see
Yeah.
is what takes your car to the next level
Right.
in
exactly.
any genre.
And you could pinpoint any car of any lowrider and it can be customized.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if it's still true to its original design. Like, you know, engraving into side mirrors, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You're not affecting the design.
Yep.
From 20 feet away, they probably can't even see it, but you're
Right.
affecting the personality.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So my car collection that I like share with my dad, like he's the one that inspired all of this, you know, because
Okay.
my dad's, he's born and raised in LA, but he's got this like old soul of wanting to be a cowboy / ranchero. Like if it were up to him, every day he would just cook steak, rice, beans, and tortillas, like every day.
Ah,
But
nice.
he also can understand the finer things in life. He loves a good oyster. He loves a good this, blah, blah, blah. But he's always loved trucks. We go to the LA Auto Show.
interesting.
My favorite was always the lower level where the Kentia Hall and you saw all these custom cars and all that.
yeah.
My dad's favorite was the Ford section because
Yep.
he'd be like, yo, but look at this. This is a V8 or this is a V10. Like,
Yeah.
He was all about that. So I also had this beautiful appreciation for just a really cool, like heavy duty looking truck.
Yep.
And then he went into the Range Rover development, and that just like opened my world. Like,
Yeah.
I'll never forget the day I'm at baseball practice. I played third base, and I'm like, I don't know, 7th grade, 6th grade, something like that. And I'm like, you know, down waiting for a ball, and I see this black 1994 Range Rover HSE, like clean, dude, all black grill around the front. It was no tint. Black with like, you know, the 3-spoke rims that were all
Yes.
chrome.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I see that thing pulling up. I'm like, oh man, right? It's getting closer and closer. And Aaron, who's on first base, goes, yo, is that your dad? And I'm like, that's my dad. Like, oh man. So that Range Rover gave him so many problems, but man, it looks so good every time it came home from the shop.
Dude, I had a similar experience with my dad, except it was a gunmetal blue 85 Plymouth Voyager.
Cool.
It it was nowhere near as like, you painted this beautiful picture and I was like, yep. I went through that. I was like, no, my dad, it was me on a playground and he pulled up in a minivan because my dad didn't care about cars. But at the same point, it's like that, you know, having those moments of whether it's a minivan or a Range Rover or whatever, as a kid, something, it kind of like, oh, wow, like look at my dad doing. To him, that was success. That was his first new vehicle he bought and everything. You know, we didn't have a whole lot growing up. So he was very proud of that. And that kind of established that little sense of like, oh, look how proud he is to be able to pull up in this and provide a nice, reliable new vehicle for his family and everything. And so that kind of gets things started, which is a seed that got planted early on, even though he wasn't a car guy. It just kind of helped fuel the fire that I had, you know?
And I think, like, to me, no matter what, you show up in my car, it's always clean or as clean as possible. You know, like I always take care of the cleanliness of my car because to me, it didn't matter what kind of car you drove. It was more of how you present it and how you take care of it. And, you know, cleaning up after your trash, cleaning up after just like the basic things. When you get your car washed, like the little corners, like do you go around and clean it? I remember looking like one time because I went out and I kind of helped the dude clean my car because he was missing some corners. And I'm like, hey, and I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just like I just have certain things about my car that like I care about.
It.
And it doesn't matter what kind of car it is, dude. Because my first car in high school was not pretty, but it was always clean.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of that, you should see the stark white, crispy AF ones that my man rolled up in today. There's no creases or anything. So I love that.
Treat your cars like your kicks.
You do. You have to. Mine are, it's pretty par for the course. I'm a dad now, so it's not as like, I don't have as much time. That's a poor excuse because, you're a dad too. But I agree with you in that regard. Like I used to, like I wouldn't leave the house without going over my car with like spray detailer and like re-upping on the armor all or whatever on the tire dressing and like cleaning the brake dust off the wheels because I didn't want to be seen.
Right.
It's not as bad. I'm not that OCD anymore, but I still, to your point, it's like it's a representation of yourself.
Absolutely,
and like if you can, if you have the time to do that, when you roll up, it doesn't matter if it's a Ferrari or Fiat or, you know, whatever, if you take pride in what you got.
Ford Sport Track.
Or a sport track, you know? But it's interesting, all of this stuff that you're talking about, and, you know, your attention to detail and your admiration for design and these details that matter, and, you know, how do people consume it? How do they see it? How, whatever, because that ties into a lot of what provides for the car addiction, how you pay for the car addiction. You are an entrepreneur, and you actually, thankfully, because we've been doing this for a bit today, brought us some of your product, so to speak. Thank you for that when you came here today. But tell us a bit about some of the things that you do, because my man here owns like 12 restaurants. It's amazing. So tell us a bit about this empire that you've built here in LA.
I mean, man, how blessed are we to even have one? I mean, restaurants are not easy. They're not easy to start. They're not easy to maintain, and they're not easy to grow. But what they are is like, they are very much a passion-driven industry, but also a passion-driven business. So the restaurant came about from a bit of desperation. And I say this from Gisaldos, because Gisaldos is what started it all. Started this restaurant in 2010 with my dad. I'm fresh out of college. He was in real estate. The market crashed 2008, 9. So in 2010, he was just like, I need a life change. He and my mom got divorced. So that was all a mess. And I was looking for, what do I want to do in my life? I'm, you know, fresh out of college. What do I want to do? And things weren't really hitting. Nobody was really hiring. And my family had a lot of real estate. My grandfather owned some real estate, and a lot of it was like apartments and front-facing restaurant businesses. So we were getting a property ready for another, like somebody to come look at it and possibly rent it. My dad just pretty much goes, "What do you say we start a restaurant?" You know, and I'm like, "Cool, yeah, I got nothing else to do," and we started Gisaldos, and you know what one turned into 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, Jonathan Gold wrote about us at one, and that's what propelled all of it. And so we've grown within the city of LA, and just, I guess the beauty of growing up in LA and never leaving is I know the city like the back of my hand.
Sure.
And every restaurant that we've opened have been because we understand, like, there's a need for it here. This is a good price for the square foot. This is a good opportunity in this space. And I think a lot of that comes from my dad and his real estate background.
Sure.
And a lot from my ability to just, we can always kind of adapt, right? Like I said, that chameleon thing, like you have your identity, but it allows, as you grow, it allows you to kind of push your limits a little bit further and re-identify yourself. And so Gisaldos has become, in my opinion, a reflection of the city. We got 10 in LA, and opened a burger stand right before COVID. That was an interesting time.
Yeah, interesting timing. And then,
bought a 1963 burger stand that had been in Boyle Heights my whole life. They were going to close, so we purchased it with the thought of redoing it. But what we ended up doing was just reimagining it. We didn't change the name. We kept it as George's Burger Stand.
Yeah.
And just cleaned the ingredients. Served quality American classic food for affordable prices. It's in Boyle Heights, so you know, people aren't comparing me to the Windows Great Smash Burgers or anything. They're comparing me to McDonald's. And so a lot of our price point had to become that. And George's is very much a product of its environment. So it serves quality food at a very affordable price. And then opened Playita, which is the ceviche restaurant in Silver Lake. And that one's just like such a beautiful opportunity that happened at the right time, and it's in Silver Lake, so there's not many mariscos offerings in the area. So a good ceviche or a fish taco on like a hot day, man, there's nothing that beats it. So that's the rundown of the restaurants.
That part is super cool, and I love that. You know, again, I don't know that you necessarily grew up wanting to do that. And we've talked a little bit about this before, and I don't know that, was that like the life plan, or did you kind of stumble into this because of your dad and everything there?
Yeah,
right?
So I wanted to be a sports agent. Growing up, I watched Arliss on HBO. Wanted to be Arliss with every inch of my, like every ounce of my being. I wanted to be a sports agent.
Yeah.
So I went through high school thinking I'm going to be a sports agent. I'm going to go to college, go to law school, learn contracts, things like that. Freshman year of college, I'm going to be a sports agent. I'm going to this. Sophomore year, maybe I don't want to be a sports agent. Junior year, I definitely don't want to be a lawyer. And senior year, I disappointed both of my parents and didn't go to law school. So, but throughout high school and college, since I was 15 and a half, I worked in a restaurant. Different restaurants, but always a restaurant.
Yeah.
It was flexible time, quick, easy money, great way to just always practice your speaking and your ability to just, communicate with people.
Sure.
And it was fast paced. So it was quick money, and it funded everything from buying shoes. I was always the kid in high school, that had money. And, you know, people would say, oh, it's because you're from here. And it's like, no, man, it's because I got to go to work after this. You know,
right.
I'm making like $100 in tips a night as a sophomore in high school. And that's big money in high school.
Huge money. Yeah.
Like I'll starve and not eat lunch so I can have this money to go out with my friends and hit Fox Hills Mall and things like that.
Fox Hills Mall. Yep.
So the restaurant was just kind of in me. And so when we decided to do this, I saw this as a way for me to practice branding, create a brand, create just like systems, and create a restaurant. And I figured it was something I could do until I get my foot into the door somewhere else. And it was God's plan that wasn't it. It was, this is it. And the cool thing is Guisados is so much a product of my father's, but creatively it's 100% mine. Like everything you see, we always say this, like everything you taste is very much my dad. You know, I've had my touches here and there along the way, but everything you see is mine because the brand, the way that you consume a restaurant. Like I'm designing restaurants. I've never designed a restaurant before, but I know how it's supposed to work.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it was also a great way to save money. So when you're growing a brand, how do you save money other than saying, I'll do it myself?
I'll do it myself.
Yep.
And man, it's been a very, very amazing blessing to the family. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when we met, it's funny because, you know, I had friends coming from New York, living in West Hollywood, had friends coming from New York being like, oh, we got to go to Guisados.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's like, yeah, it's right down the street. Like we're literally walking to it. You know, we moved up north after when the pandemic hit basically. But what I thought was the coolest thing, and like, not that I worked in restaurants for a long time when I was younger, but I wouldn't, you know, maybe one day kind of thought, right? Yeah. But it's not something that like I'm driven towards. Yeah. But when you talked about G's on Sunday, I was like, oh shit, this is it. Mm-hmm. Like this makes all of this whole thing connect in a way that I just couldn't, like it wasn't in my head at all until you said it and talked about it. So talk a little bit about that and what that is for you, because it's what Eric alluded to.
That's the whole reason why we're here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like the business feeds the fun.
Sure.
It becomes this beautiful cycle of life.
So to kind of rewind on G's on Sunday, during COVID, our restaurants weren't doing so great. You know, you're kind of having to think on your toes. Right. You're trying to figure this out. And especially in a place like LA, we were the last ones to move forward with so many different situations. Sure. So I thought, how do I find a way to get more people into the restaurant? And at the time, there's Cars and Coffee every week now. But back then in 2020, there wasn't any Cars and Coffee. And so I thought, how do I get people to come into the restaurant, try to keep it a little, you know, subtle, not just hundreds of people in the restaurant, and, you know, do something that I'm passionate about. And I've just been itching to design something and create a new brand. And I'm on the treadmill and G's church on Sunday, like, you know, the Kanye song, like, church. And I'm just like, man, how do I bring somebody in on Sunday? Like, oh, I'm gonna do a car meet. Yeah, I'll do a car meet. People bring their cars, and I'll like, what should I name it? Like, G's on George's and Guisados on Sunday. Yep. And at the time, Playita wasn't open yet, so it was just these two restaurants. And I thought, wow, this works because it ties into the restaurants and it allows me to create whatever I want. And what I wanted to create was some sort of car-driven brand that also reflects the city of LA, but also ties into the restaurants. At every G's on Sunday, it's hosted at either a Guisados or a George's. And then one time it wasn't hosted there, it was hosted at the Peterson, which was crazy and amazing. But Guisados and George's catered that day. So it still brought money into the business.
Right.
And this was a way to bring people into the business, do something I like, create some cool content, and hopefully just make, like, I hate to say, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss in here, but make cool shit. Make cool shit.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, man, what was my favorite part of growing up? Posters on my wall. You know, like, there's nothing like those cars you've seen or the posters of the athletes. You know, we're ripping out magazine covers, putting them on. So much of your identity is what people see around you. And so I thought, if I can create this brand, I want to do only things that I want to do, not what everybody tells me I should do. And I became friends with this guy named Victor, who we all know. Yep. And I told him my idea, and he goes, hey, I got this opportunity to work with Montejo, the beer company. And they want to do something with Esteban Oreo, the lowrider culture photographer, you know. He's been shooting with Exhibit and all this stuff. So how do we do this together? And it's COVID. It's November. And I said, Vic, I got this idea, but we can't do it because it's COVID and I can't be the restaurant hosting an event, you know? So this is what we're going to do. So we're going to create this really cool capsule and we're going to do a mural and we're going to work with this muralist and we're going to like create this day called G's on Sunday. Yeah. And it's going to be a meetup of a bunch of lowriders at George's in Boyle Heights and take a 2.5 mile drive to Guisaldo Seco Park, which is right by Dodger Stadium. Yeah. And we're going to make it look like this was a meet and a cruise. And we're going to release a cool poster on that day. Everybody's going to get a poster. Everybody's going to get a hoodie. Everybody's going to just get a bunch of cool shit. And I'm going to design it all. And this is like what I want to do. And I would love if we can do this. Victor's like, this is perfect. Let's do it. Yeah. So we come up with the G's on Sunday date and we shoot this. We didn't have any promo to shoot ahead, especially because of COVID. So what I told my videographer, a good friend of mine, Shafiq, who shoots a lot of our stuff, I was like, dude, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make it look like we had a cool car event. We're practically shooting a music video. Yeah. And what we're going to do with this content is we're going to like capture it all and then release it over time and use that as content to incentivize the next one. Yeah. And the next one and the next one and the next one. And so what we did was that. And we created G's on Sunday on that day, made some really cool video. And then I literally used that video to pitch it to the next guy and be like, this is what we did on this day. Yeah. And it's like 12 cars, 20 people, like just don't shoot faces. And if you do shoot faces, don't shoot it again. Like just try your best to make this look like this was a big day. Sure. And we did. So that's amazing. That was the birth of G's on Sunday. And to this day, like all I care about is making cool shit. Yeah. I don't really, you know, there's been some cool opportunities along the way, some nice looking checks, but one, I'm so wrapped with the restaurants. The restaurants is my life and that's what pays the bills. Yeah. So I have to respect that. And if it doesn't make sense monetarily or time-wise, then I just can't do it. And it's nothing against whoever that opportunity might have come from, but it's more of the fact that every G's on Sunday needs to be really well thought out. Yeah. I design all of our stuff. And if I don't design it, I have such a heavy hand in it because this is my brainchild. Yeah. And I don't need to do this. Yeah. I do it because I love it. So
how many G's on Sunday events have you had thus far? And
since we've done 3 a year minimum. One time we did 4, but about 3 a year.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have more planned for this year?
Yeah, we have our next one will be July 13th. Might double check the date, but the Sunday after 4th of July. Okay. That's our Carrera Arroyo, which I do with Nick from Makina. And we do this meet in Chinatown at 7 a.m. And it's kind of like all makes welcome. It first started off, it's kind of like a Porsche BMW thing, but it's such a cool turnout. We're like, take off the whole German classics. Yeah. And we meet in Chinatown. We go up the 110, which is the oldest freeway on this side of the Mississippi.
Drove it today. Yep. Love it.
It's just this beautiful winding freeway. And it's only, I think it's only like 9 or 12 miles. It's not even that, maybe not even that. But you go from Chinatown to Pasadena, and that stretch is the original stretch of the freeway. Yeah. Every year we release the grill badges, which are made by Lean. And the past 2 years that we've done the grill badges, they've sold out like that. Yeah. But they're cool because 1, I designed them. 2, it's like this limited piece you can only get this day. And it's more of a commemoration of this day. Yeah. And then we'll release the shirts and all the other accoutrements for the day. But that's the next event and it's always a great time. Yeah. Yeah.
So then these you've taken kind of the I guess the badging off of that one, any all makes welcome, et cetera. Are you still doing like a lowrider theme, a Porsche theme, G's on, like are there different ones that you're doing aside from that one?
So it started off as very much, I want to tap into these different themes, and these themes would be dictated by the person who's paying for it, like the sponsor, and who they want to talk to. Sure. So, some of them are were really interested in the Porsche thing. So let's do a Porsche meet. And so there are events like that I've done, and I still want to do more of those, but I also feel like no matter what, somebody's going to show up in a different car. And to
you don't want to turn them away.
Yeah. And to me, the biggest thing with a lot of those events was I've been to an event before where my car didn't fit in. And it wasn't money. It was more of the fact that you just didn't fit in and you felt like you're inferior. And I don't like people feeling that way. So all of my events now have become more of, like my dad meet, which was in Christmas. I guess it was more of like a family meet, but it was a toy drive. And I cared more about the wagons coming and like the lowrider type body cars. I'm sorry, lowrider type family cars, because like that's what it's kind of become. It's become a reason for me to have my wife and daughters come meet me. And, you know, my girls love to come to George's and get pancakes that morning or whatever it is. And so it's like, it's more about the people. And G's on Sunday is very malleable. You know, we did the event at the Peterson and we had like over 400 cars show up.
Jeez, that's
to me,
G's for G's.
Yeah, and to me, I was like, okay, cool, I could do this, right? And this is already 3 years in, which I already knew I could do it, but I kind of just felt like, all right, I can go big.
Yeah.
Or for like the Christmas one, dude, I know there's a lot of car meets the week before Christmas.
Yeah.
But I cared about just finding a reason for my friends to come together and just say what's up and bring their family. And so the poster I designed was also released in just a black and white 11x17 paper, and I had a coloring station. So when all the kids show up, you know, like there's just a ton of crayons and color pencils and as many copies as you want. I don't care what you do with the paper, but it was more about I want that kid to enjoy that day.
Right.
And a lot of it too is because a lot of my meets are in Boyle Heights. A lot of these kids don't see some of these cars.
That's very true.
So when I'll never forget people being like, "Is that a Porsche?" And I'm like, so I could either correct you for not saying Porsche. No, I'm just kidding. But
I normally do that. I don't do that with the guests, but if Jacques were here, I would be all over him. There's actually, ironically, there's a license plate back here that says Porsche.
With 2 A's, But it was more about that, you know, a lot of these kids haven't seen these cars before. And I love the feeling of people showing up just proud of what they drive.
Yeah.
And I think that's very rare in a lot of car scenes, especially as your brand continues to pull from such a wide variety of people. And I'll never forget, we hosted the first Porsche meet and this Ferrari shows up and I'm like, dude, this thing is dope.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's not a Porsche. I was like, put it right there.
Yeah, I don't care.
You know, and it's like, that's the way you should feel. And so I try my best at all of our meets to kind of go around and talk to people because I've been, but I never want to be that person that just kind of feels out of place and like kind of like hands in pockets. Like, all right, I'm just going to go. You know, I don't like that. So.
Yeah, we talked about that on a podcast a long time ago, but like I grew up in El Paso and it was really lowrider centric and JDM centric, right? And back then the internet didn't exist. It was, again, telling my age here, but like I liked the JDM stuff. I liked, you know, the lowrider stuff. I had appreciation. I have had an appreciation for everything. I've owned, I think I'm up to like 70, 71 cars that I've owned in my life, and it's run the gamut. It's been from like old hot rods to Porsches to, you know, JDM cars to trucks to like, I just love everything. But when I was growing up, you know, kind of like you in high school, I delivered pizzas and worked at the golf course so that I could always have the dopest car at school, right? Kids thought, oh, he's got money. No, we didn't have any money, but I had a little bit because while they were out partying and stuff, I was working.
I'm working, man.
And so one of the trucks, one of my first like bigger builds was a 91 Toyota pickup truck. And this is back when like mini trucks in Southern California, they like that, the Nissan hardbody equivalent. Yeah. So like in Southern California, I would see through magazines and stuff because that's the only way we saw like mini trucks and the mini trucking culture and everything. I was like, oh, that's super dope. But also being in El Paso, like we were limited as to what kind of accessories we could get, et cetera. And, you know, I wasn't really going to like blend like the lowrider world with this and that, but I tried to kind of take from what I aspired to and what I was surrounded by. And so I would show up to these car shows or these events, and it would be like, you know, all low riders. And they'd be like, there's a picture of my truck parked next to like a Ranger that was on 3 wheels with like undercarriage all chromed and engraved this and pinstriped that. And then some other like 64 Impalas and stuff. And then here's my bright tangerine Toyota pickup truck that's slammed on 16-inch tuner wheels, because 16-inch wheels back then were huge. And it had like a center exhaust out the back, and it had like a cold air intake, and then I had like seats from a Honda CRX that were purple tweed, and like it was this mishmash of like mini truck and JDM and lowrider, and it didn't fit in anywhere, but it stood out. And so it was cool because there were some of the purists that like, you can't, you know, whatever. They never said anything, but you could get that attitude like, you don't belong here type thing. But the vast majority of people were like, oh, this is something different. And they welcomed me. And that's what I love about the car culture. You got the assholes, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, for sure.
But I love that, you know, for the most part, people that are true car enthusiasts or true sneakerheads or whatever, they appreciate what other people bring to the table, even if it doesn't fit in. As a matter of fact, sometimes if it doesn't fit in, they have more admiration for you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've always, again, that's part of the reason we started all this, is because I love these subcultures that we all share, the passion for, but it also allows us to then meet other people and then learn about their life stories. Because I've always been fascinated with just people's journeys and their successes and their entrepreneurship and everything. And I get that from my dad. My dad was a character, and he used to talk to anybody and everybody, and he'd pretend he'd had a microphone, and he'd go up and be like, "Tell me your life story in like 3 minutes or less," and be like, "Okay," to some random stranger. Yeah. Sometimes they just dismissed him. Sometimes they're like, "Cool," and he would get to know people just through that. And it could be because he saw him pull up in a cool car. My son loves cars. What is that? Or those are some. My dad would wear some of my sneakers because we were the same size. So he was wearing a pair of like my Tinker 3s once out at some coffee shop, and some kid was like, "Yo," because my dad at the time was like in his 60s, and I'm like, "What the?" And he's like, "Yeah, these are the Tinkers." Like he had no idea.
Ankle support.
Yeah, exactly. But my point with that is like these are the ways that you get in and you get to know somebody and you get to learn more about their life and all that other stuff. And that's what's super cool. And like a G's on Sunday idea on the surface is a cool car meetup and a cool way to like share your culture and your commonalities, but it also, like being in Boyle Heights, it gives back to the community. It exposes stuff, these kids and stuff to things that they wouldn't necessarily get to see, and it sparks a whole nother generation of interest.
It's very much that, because a lot of these kids do see lowriders all the time.
Sure.
And maybe people in Venice or, whatever, different cities don't see lowriders all the time. So we're exposed to so many different things, but I think the mix of all of that helps you create who you are. I could always rock a pair of fresh white Forces, but this past weekend I was by the beach, so I wore some fresh white Vans. You can always decide who you want to be, still remaining yourself, but it's like one thing remains constant, and it's how you present it, right? How people consume it. And so when you're walking through a really nice hotel in Orange County, or you're walking through a really dangerous area in Boyle Heights, you have to be able to dress a certain way.
Sure.
I mean, I'll never forget, we're opening Gisaldo's Hermosa, and it's like 2 weeks ahead, and I'm buying sandwiches for the crew, and I'm like, I'm going to go walk and just go get some sandwiches. Okay, cool. There's a place. I'm wearing pretty much something what I'm wearing now. Like baggy pants, fresh whites, like, just a white T-shirt or whatever I'm wearing, and probably had a hat backwards or whatever. And I walk into this sandwich shop, and this kid walks in behind me, like tall, like 20-year-old kid, sandy blonde hair, no shirt, no shoes, just literally swim trunks. And I'm like, bro, it is 50 degrees outside. and I'm like, I don't fit in here, but I do, because this person's probably looking at me like, oh, he's probably from the east side, or you know what I mean? It's still LA, but there's such a wide variety of identities that are all influenced by what your surroundings are.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
It's cool too, because like, actually I had a thought. Maybe we should define the JDM for our sneaker people that don't know anything about cars as Japanese domestic market. So think about like
Fast and Furious 1.
Yeah. Yes. Fast and Furious, like Hondas, Nissans, Toyotas, that kind of thing. But I wonder, like, I think we might have even talked about this when we first met, but like, it feels like this, what you're doing, what Cars and Coffee has become in the last 5 to 10 years, globally even, has become so much more accepting of all of the differences than it was, back in the 90s. Like, Eric was like the outlaw because he mixed all those things up with his truck. Like I had like a cousin that was, bought a 91 Civic fresh off the lot and like put 16-inch wheels on it. And like, I still wanted wires on my Accord, so I was the weird one in my family but he was the weird one because his dad ran the Chevy dealership. So he was supposed to be driving, an Impala back then. Like, and I think like, it's just been so cool to see, the stuff that you're doing, but like just on a grander scale, how much more people are like embracing the weirdness of all of these cars that come out.
It's also like the shoe surgeon effect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Growing up, I'll never forget, I used to like design sneakers. I used to draw sneakers. I shouldn't say design. I was a kid and I loved to draw shoes, loved to draw cars. And I always wanted to come to Nike with this idea. I would kill this design, flip that logo around, put it backwards. Telling you the design of the swoosh would look better when it's facing backwards. And like
Travis Scott's.
Yeah, bro. But I had that idea when I'm in like sixth grade. But it's funny because then comes people like the shoe surgeon who is like, it's a fresh pair of Forces, and the only thing I changed was I took the swoosh and I put ostrich skin on it or whatever.
Yeah.
And it becomes accepted now.
Yeah.
When at first it's like, well, why would you do that to a pair of Jordans or a pair of you know, it's in the Virgil Abloh, like, why would you do this to something that was already great? And it's because at some point you need to come up with what's next, but also still give reverence and respect to what the design is.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that was also with cars. It's cars and shoes always is like, yeah, you can change that, but it probably won't look better than it did at the factory because these designers have been taught, and I'm talking like high-end cars. I'm saying like they've been taught to understand aerodynamics and like cost and feasibility of something and the way the metal can bend. And all of these things are the reason why this car was designed like this. And half of the time, especially in Boyle Heights, you see some edits on a car and you're like, that doesn't look very good. But every once in a while, you know, every once in a while, that Ford F1 Lightning, 1998 Lightning, you know, it's like, man, that thing lower looked good.
Yeah. We talked about that. Like, it's like, there's like this, we talked about it on a recent show, Scratching the Itch, but it's like this weird obsession that car people have where it's like, we could look out this window and be like, okay, Toyota Camry, RAV4, Jeep Wagoneer, Pontiac Aztek.
Yeah.
With the exception of the Aztek, I know exactly what I would do to any of those cars to make it a little bit better in my own.
100%. And every single time I'm also sitting in traffic, I do that same thing with every car around me. And I also go, okay, if I had to pick one.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I guess I'm going with the Camry.
Speaking of picking one, like we opened with, you know, how eclectic your vehicles are and everything like that. What'd you drive here today?
Today I drove the Daily. The Daily is a Porsche Cayenne GTS coupe.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's I love that
fun,
car,
fast, reliable. Yeah,
fits the car seats in the back.
Yep.
I actually went in to buy a Taycan in 2021, and I'm like, that's the one I want. Okay, cool. I kind of waited for it to come in. I was watching it, and literally I see it come in one day, and they're like, no, it's still on the truck. I was like, oh, I'll be back tomorrow. Okay, cool. And I'm coming in to get a Taycan. Man, they got this Cayenne parked right in the showroom. And I'm just looking, the paperwork here, and I'm looking over here, and the guy goes, you really don't want this Taycan, do you? I'm like, yeah, I do. And he goes, you want me to start it for you?
Oh,
like, Now we're indoors, right? We're in the showroom.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
man,
Taycan
I'm not ready
that.
for electric. Ended up, and my dad was kind of over my shoulder. He drove me over to the dealer, and he's kind of like, are you sure you want to do that? Because, like, you know, electric car. I'm like, that could be my next car. Like, if this whole law goes through, let me just enjoy one more V8.
Yeah.
And I love this car, man. At
awesome.
any point you can go, and at any point you can get things done. And the restaurant requires me to do a lot, so I'm always filling it up, bending seats over. So I need that space. Yeah. But at any time I can pull up and just gun it. You know? So so I got that. And I say we because a lot. It's like, for example, we have a Hummer, and that's not mine. That's my dad's. He bought this H1 Hummer, and it is like the sexiest Hummer you'll ever see. But he never drives it. I take care of it. You know, I take him to the shop. I do all the registration and all that. And I'm the one that drives them. So we together have a pretty healthy collaboration. But he has an H1 Hummer. We have an H1 Hummer 2001 Alpha, 88 M6. I have a 87 560 SL Mercedes that used to be my grandpa's that I rebuilt from the ground up, except for the paint. It's still beautiful. We have a 992 911, so pretty recent, kind of our just like, you know, dinner car, if you will. A 67 Corvette Stingray, rebuilding a 72 Bronco. I'm sorry, a 69 Bronco. And I'm missing one, but it's in there somewhere. Yeah. So that's the car.
No lowriders.
So to me, that is the Holy Grail.
Okay. That's where I was
that is
going.
the Holy Grail. Because the thing is, and I have so many great friends who are like, dude, when you're ready. I'm like, that's the thing is, I don't want one that's like, buy it today, drive it tomorrow.
Yeah. Right.
But I also don't really want to wait for buy it today and drive it in 4 years.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the one that's close enough to being ready, but far enough to still make my own.
Make your own, yeah.
But at the same time, I also am kind of like, I need to be a responsible husband and father. And my wife's like, why don't we buy a bigger house first? I'm like, you're right. I need a 3-car garage.
Yeah.
Like, you're right, babe. All right, good idea.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way I feel. I'm still a responsible young man. So to me, lowrider is that Holy Grail.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it a specific car?
No, I'm pretty flexible, man. I love the Bel Airs. I even love some El Caminos. I wouldn't go El Camino, but I love the Bel Airs. I love an Impala.
Yeah.
And again, I don't care how many Impalas are out there. People are like, oh, there's two.
They're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
There's just something about both of those body types that I love. Like, you know, the Bel Air's just big, round, and then but also the pointy edges. Like, it's just so pretty.
Yeah.
So I'm flexible.
Yeah. But that's coming at some point.
At some point it's coming because I'm also eyeing wagons, like an Impala wagon.
Yeah.
No.
We shot one for one of the G's on Sunday promos, and like it took everything not to be like, do you want the Cayenne and plus 20 grand? Like, it was just perfect.
Yeah.
So that's the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Awesome,
yeah. Well, dude, I really appreciate you making the time not only to come out here and do the pod, but also to bring us like a dozen tacos.
Yeah.
Like, they're sitting over there. Jacques just rocked back up, by the way. Everybody, I know you can't see him, but he walked back in here. There are 2 tacos over there for you, I think, unless Enzo ate them. I don't know. But no, man, we really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm glad we got to meet you a while back at that event. I'm glad we finally got to do this. And congrats on all the success of Guisados, George's Burgers, Playita, G's on Sunday. I only request that you maybe expand both Guisados and G's on Sunday out to Texas because, you know, I can only make so many trips out to LA these days.
And I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like, if we can take another minute, it's just like the beauty of G's on Sunday is being able to decide what and where I want it to go, because it's such a personal affection that I'm like, I don't have to say yes. I don't even have to say no. I can just kind of make it myself. I can decide where I want to go. You know, there was light talks of doing one in Mexico because I was going to be in Mexico. And I'm just like, man, it would be really fun to just like keep growing the network, but also just bring a bunch of shirts and sell a bunch of shirts and like make some cool hats and just create things that are inspired by these different types of like demographics. So there's no saying no to that just yet.
All right, you heard it here, folks. It's they're coming to Dallas in 2020. No, I'm just kidding. No, man, but we appreciate it. Thank you so much. For everybody out there watching, Nick, you can take us out this time. I'm Eric Valdez. This is Nick Ingval.
Yeah, find us at carsxkicks.com. Links to everything you need will be there. And Jacques will be back with us for the next show.
Yes, he will. See y'all.